Hello and good morning. My name is Jeff Stauffer, Community Relations Director with Elville and Associates, and welcome to our webinar today titled Learn the Truth About Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Seniors, Real Estate, and More, presented by Ms. Victoria Hathaway, Director of the Silver Group of Bob Lucido team of Keller Williams Integrity. So when I first started Elville and Associates 7.5 years ago, Victoria was the first person I met in the community. And I did not know at that time that to this day, I would be meeting the most amazing person I would ever meet in my time here at the firm. So you're all in for a real treat today. And as somebody wise said to me just the other day, she comes in with a servant's heart. So how this will work today, all attendees are on mute, but you have a voice. And if you have questions, please note them in the questions panel on the right-hand portion of your screen, and we'll pause periodically throughout to get them answered. For professionals on today's webinar, you may receive 1.5 continuing education hours for attending. If I don't have it already, for CFPs, please email me your board ID and the last 4 digits of your social security number, and please send this information to me as soon as possible. Everyone will also receive a post-webinar feedback email right after the presentation, and we ask that you please fill out this simple survey to offer us feedback about the presentation. And it's also a great time to request an initial consultation or a document review with one of our attorneys if you have any planning needs. Or you can suggest a topic for a future webinar you'd like to see us host in our series. So as we have a lot to cover today, I'm going to bypass the intro to our firm. You can visit us at elvilleassociates.com to learn more about us. I'd like to offer a proper introduction for our presenter today, Ms. Victoria Hathaway. So Victoria Hathaway serves Bob Lucido team of Keller Williams Integrity as Director of the Silver Group, the team's Seniors Real Estate Division. Victoria's expertise is in guiding and educating her clients statewide with resources for relocating, downsizing, estate sales, elder law and estate planning, veteran benefits, and more. Her service is included for Silver Group clients, and she works along with the agent throughout the entire process of downsizing, selling, and moving. Victoria's background in communications and healthcare, combined with caregiving for her 105-year-old grandmother and her parents, led to her passion for advocacy, education, and the value of community and culture change for older adults. Her credentials include Certified Senior Advisor, Certified Senior Housing Professional, Seniors Real Estate Specialist, and Realtor, and she holds the Certificate on Aging from Johns Hopkins University. The immediate past president of the Coalition of Geriatric Services, or COGS, now in its 27th year in Howard County, she is also a member of the advisory boards for Johns Hopkins University's Aging Studies, the Maryland Gerontological Association, and the National Association of Senior Advocates, and drives for Howard County's Seniors Rideshare Program, Neighbor Ride. Very notably, in December, Howard County Executive Dr. Calvin Ball named Victoria the newest Commissioner on Aging for Howard County. A lifelong resident of Howard County, Victoria enjoys spending time with her family and 2 unusually calm Jack Russell Terriers. So with that said, welcome, Victoria. We're very pleased to have you and look forward to your presentation today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for sharing all that. It's a lot to get out, things that I'm proud of and that have helped me to do my best in service to all of my clients and to Elville and Associates. So thank you to you, and thank you to the firm, and thank you to everyone who's here this morning. And I hope that we can, set you up for success in any way possible. And I hope that when we finish, you will learn some things that you didn't know, and you will learn some things that you didn't even know you didn't know, perhaps. So my goal is to answer as many of your own questions as I can. So please feel free to hit the chat bar and to share with Jeff, and he'll help me, round up and get to those things. It's great to do sort of a canned presentation, but to be able to really get at what is interesting to you and the things that you came here to learn about, that's most important to me. I believe that an educated consumer is the best consumer. So, the education turns into advocacy, and that is also my goal. And I'm an open book, both personally and professionally. So I feel like there's value in the stories, and some of the stories that I share are from my own personal experience and my own learning curve, and some of them are from my world of work. So, so let's get started. And I'm going to try to go in an order that makes sense in terms of the overall process. We may jump around a little bit, and if questions come through, we'll just take it as it comes. So because I am working within the world of real estate, I'm going to start there. And, my kind of kitchen table presentation approach is conversational and somewhat informal. And I love PowerPoints. I love to attend PowerPoints and sometimes to give PowerPoints. But the way that we've chosen to go today is to have a conversation. So when we get the call from people who need to speak with me and speak with my firm and to do the learning process about seniors real estate, we start at the beginning. And the first question is, when does it make sense for a realtor to come and visit? And we always say the sooner the better. The reason why is there is a huge benefit to having us come sooner so that people can learn about their home, learn about what they may want to do with it, learn about all the different scenarios that they'll be presented with in the selling process. So, normally that breaks down into a conversation where we can become specific. Am I going to sell my property as is? Am I going to do some renovations? Am I going to do a whole bunch of renovations? And even a conversation about, I may want to sell directly to an investor type of scenario. And what do those turn into in terms of price points? And the worst thing that I experience is showing up to an appointment. The client is basically ready, but they have gone and spent time and money and energy doing things that they did not need to do to the house or should not have done to the house. So that to me is my own little world of heartbreak. And so my coaching is, have us come a year ahead of time. It's amazing when you're preparing to sell how fast that time flies. And when you're trying to get contractors in and get things done, or just get through the downsize process. So for seniors real estate, rule of thumb is, early is better than late, sooner is better than later. I believe that the tortoise wins the race, not the hare. And certainly, I've had experiences where I've been called in on very short notice, and I have been at the kitchen table for 6 hours. That's my record in terms of my length of an appointment. Didn't even get up to powder my nose that whole time, did everything that I would be required to do in front of the clients at that kitchen table for that 6 hours, and left the house with the sign guy coming to put the sign in the post hole. I don't recommend it. We can do it that way, but it should be a process and it should go in an orderly fashion. So that's what I have to say about that. I also experience people, letting their hair down and telling me that just having that appointment is creating anxiety for them, and they think that they should already be downsized and white glove, house cleaned, as if they were ready for the photographer to come. And my coaching on that is, please just do not feel that way. Do not look at it that way. Anytime I come or the agent comes, we're just there to meet and to see the bones of the house and to help. Everything in real estate is confidential. I was brought up, my grandmother was born in 1889 and my mother was born in 1933. And that was an era of extreme housekeeping and house cleaning. And, it doesn't need to be that way. It doesn't need to be an anxiety producing thing. Better to have us come in and just be able to have a discussion and come out of the gate prepared in the best possible way. So we like to help people understand what happens in that appointment. And normally what happens is, the agent is bringing the meat and potatoes to that meeting. And the market analysis, I think, is the most important part of that meeting. Agents, you meet one agent, you've met one agent. You work with one broker, you've worked with one broker. They're all different. So one of the things that I really value is make sure that your agent is bringing you a market analysis of your home. Some agents are able to come in and sort of take a look around, a spin tour, and they'll spit out a number that they believe your home is going to sell for. And they may be 100% correct, but I'm a bit of a nerd, and I am into the data. And if you're coming from, trust and anxiety, and you really want to know that it's right, there should be printed data that's showing you what is the market doing around your house. Go 3 months back in time, go a mile out in distance. Hope that your home is not going to be difficult to find comparable sales for. If you have a historic home or a home that's unusual for your neighborhood, that makes it harder on the agent to really dial that number in. But nevertheless, you should be looking at data, and the goal is to figure out what are the houses that are just as exactly like yours as possible selling for. So that's kind of how to take the smoke and mirrors out of home pricing, and how to get to best practice. Home pricing is its own art, I would say, and it's kind of where the art and the science of real estate meet. A real estate agent will price your home wherever you tell them. They are not the boss of that, but ideally they are there to guide you and to help you understand what is going to be the best price for your house. And what that usually means is, going to get you the quickest sale, shortest amount of days on the market, and the most amount of money. So there are concepts that are important to understand. Normally if people want to set it a bit higher and then, come down, that would be more normal than setting it at a price point and then going up. There's a whole school of thought that if you set it at a price point that people perceive as affordable for your particular home, let's set it at $375, and everybody comes out of the woodwork because they think, my goodness, what a bargain for $375. What happens is you get people that come, they fall in love, and then they're engaging in bidding wars. And the next thing you know, that $375,000 price point has netted you a $400,000 sale. So there's a bit of psychology, a bit of an understanding of consumer behavior, and that's another good conversation to have with your real estate agent. Let's talk about the best price for my house. One of my joys in these presentations is to be an industry insider and to give you the benefit of that. That's one of my passions. The agents don't necessarily hate me for it, but they don't necessarily love me for it either. And so being able to give you some of the jargon and some of the understanding of the practices that happen in real estate, my goal is to make you kind of bomb-proof as you go into this. I don't want anybody to be a lamb to the slaughter and to not understand what's going on. So an example of that would be that in this early stage of exploring, hiring an agent, and you're hopefully interviewing competitively, because again, if you meet one and you have their presentation and their pricing and their commission, you've met one. It's, the next one's going to be different, I guarantee you. Different approach, different tools in the toolkit. So buying the listing is something that happens in real estate. And what that means is you have, let's say 2 realtors come, and one says, all right, you have a lot of wallpaper, you have outdated color shag carpeting. Buyers don't want that. You might want to, have me coach you and provide services to renovate, to update before you go live. And I think you're going to sell for somewhere in the neighborhood of $375. And the next agent comes and says, wow, your house is just great, don't do a thing, and I think I can get you $400. Well, you like the second guy, or gal, and you go with them. So then what happens is people are not coming because they don't like the looks of it. They see the wallpaper and the work that's going to, land on their plate, and they don't want to have to spend money and get in there and replace carpet. They want move-in ready. Most buyers want it to be, ready to go and something that they can be proud of the minute they take the keys and move in. And nobody's making offers. So after a week, 2 weeks, a month, the feedback is, oh gosh, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, your home isn't getting any traffic and nobody wants it at this price point, so we better reduce it to $375. So now you're at the price point that the other agent told you you should have been at initially, and you are now perceived as stale by the buyers and the other agents who are bringing the buyers. And suddenly, the hard-edged aspect of real estate is, well, we're not going to give them even asking price. We're going to try to get them down because it's already been time and nobody's buying their house. So that's sort of a gross oversimplification of what can go on. And you basically have suffered at the hands of an agent who bought your listing. They told you what sounded easiest and best, and you went for it, and the other guy was telling you the truth. Listing contract is a topic that I'm also really, really passionate about talking about, because I want to kind of decode that as well. A listing contract is what you, the seller, sign. It's between you and your agent. It is the paperwork that actually makes it real. You're interviewing agents, you're thinking about it, and when you sign that listing contract, it is a contract. Agents like to soft pedal that, and it is true that the listing contract doesn't trigger a timeline per se. I meet a lot of people who are reluctant to sign the listing contract because they think it's going to trigger their house going active, and there really isn't a timeline there per se. So I see a listing contract as something that you can take, review it, digest it, carry it back to your attorney, to your family, have a good look through it, highlight it, go back and have another time where you ask questions about it. It is true that it's basically a boilerplate type of document, state of Maryland, all the same. Each county has a little bit of a difference. So, agents need to be well functioning in the county where they're working. That being said, the two main points that I would want you to be aware of: number one, there's going to be an expiration to that contract. So that date, are you signing to work with this agent for a year, for a day, for a month? That date is something I want you to be highly aware of, and that it's something where you should be negotiating that to your comfort level. If we fill it out that it's going to go to December 31st of 2021, okay, great, we're agreed. The other piece of it is, what is the term of cancellation? It's a whole different subject. So it could be that you're on the hook with that agent for a year. It could be a day. It could be that they're asking you for a year and the contract is pre-printed to say a year, and you can look at that and say, I'm not comfortable with that. I want it, to be for 3 months or 1 day cancellation. So just, happy to have that conversation, and absolutely make sure that you understand that, listing contract isn't anything to be afraid of, but I want you to be in a power position understanding the expiration date for it and the amount of time that you need to give the agent to get away from them if you're not happy, you've changed your mind and don't want to sell at all. What I experience is about once a month, an agent, a client will reach out to us and say, we want to come with you. We're not having a good experience. We want to cancel this other agent. And the first thing we say is, take out your listing contract and look at the terms, because it really is a contract. And, I've got one right now where they were with an agent for 5 years. The contract doesn't expire till the end of this year, and they needed to give 90 days to get out of it. So, we are happy to reach out and say to the agent, look, this is an adversarial situation. You're making it bad for our whole industry by doing it this way. So just something I feel very strongly about, and I don't want to see anybody inveigled or held hostage.
Victoria?
Yes.
I have a couple questions.
Great.
If this is a good time to pause for a couple minutes.
Great.
Okay, great. So the first question is from a good friend of our firm. Hi, Joe, out there. And the question is, how do you get the word out to seniors who are not known to act fast or early, that they should have a realtor guide them at least a year before they may be ready to move?
That's a great question. I would say that one of the education and advocacy roles that the senior living communities are doing is this. If they're wise to the benefit to their prospects, They will wind people up like me, other realtors, and they will talk in the marketing suite directly to people that are shopping senior living communities and help them understand that if this is going to be something they're looking at, don't wait. Get ahead of the game and have these appointments and do the learning. Take time to digest what the agents are telling you about your house. It's all going to take, at least twice the amount of time that people think it's going to take. I would say that every time I read the Post and the Sun on a daily basis, newspapers on a daily basis. Sometimes there are articles in the lay press that echo this, but it is really, it is a bit of a struggle to get the word out there, and particularly now where we're not having the expos and maybe not having these conversations in such an easy way. Does that answer?
Sure, thank you. And the next question is something that you may be discussing in a little while. So if it's something you want to hold off on, that's certainly fine. But if you want to answer it now, great. The question is, how do we find a life care manager? I appreciate you mentioning them in your article, which I did send out those 2 articles that you wrote for our newsletters. Thank you.
That's one of my favorite categories of senior serving professionals, and it is in my stack today to talk about, and I'm happy to go there now. So there's a website, and let's see, I'm afraid to touch anything on my computer and my screen right now. They used to be called geriatric care managers. A few years ago, they rebranded to life care managers. And it may be, I think Jeff's doing some magic, aginglifecaremanagers.org, or, there's a national clearinghouse website. It's a very nicely built website, and it lets you drill down even by, your town, your zip code. And then it will give you the local members who are, carrying that credential and part of that professional association. There it is, www.aginglifecare.org. Fantastic.
Yes, correct.
So, one of the really neat things about Elville and Associates is they have been woke to the value of that professional sector as long as I've known them, and they can actively make that referral and tell you kind of cream of the crop, the ones that they know and have an actual working relationship with. One of my passions about this topic is I'm a hair splitter. And, if you are looking to do care placement, looking to explore retirement living, you've got, a fork in the road. You can work with care placement. You can work with residential placement, and that's all they do. They're expert, they're wonderful, they're fun, they're free, and they will help you shop for senior living options. When you work with a life care manager, there's additional function there. They can also show you different communities and do the care placement piece, and they're usually, working closely as well with social workers at the hospitals. But they are also ones who normally are great with interacting with the physician, interacting with the attorneys, interacting with the families, handling those different agendas, and sometimes you're able to actually do a bit of therapy if you have kind of really caring children who have very different opinions on what mom and dad should be doing. So there's just each of these categories is wonderful, but the chance to educate all of you about this one does this and this one does these things, and it's a different business model. When you're working with someone who's strictly doing residential placement, you can enjoy that being free, because their business model is that if you are shown a residential setting and you choose that setting, that residence pays the fee of the care of the placement person. When you're working with life care managers, you retain them, you pay them, so the business model is very different. They will go everywhere with you and show you wherever you want to see. But the other format is only in contract with specific communities. And so you run the risk that you may have somebody who doesn't want to show you a community that they're not in contract with, because if they show that to you and you like that, they won't get paid. So to me, there, no shame in that, no harm, no foul. but the opportunity, again, to be at the kitchen table and have kind of a back channel conversation about this and wake consumers up to the fact that these exist at all, and then to understand how the apple is different to the orange. I'm so passionate about that. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, and we work with a number of aging life care managers here at Elville and Associates. And Debbie, if you would like any warm referrals, we are certainly happy to offer them to you. If you reach out to me later, just email me and we can get some referrals to you from our attorneys. I know a few of them that we work with here closely. There are just a few that we really believe in strongly. So we're very happy to provide those names to you. So I believe those are all the questions for right now, Victoria. Thanks very much. And I'll interject in a little while when there's a couple more. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. And if it's okay, just to touch that topic one more time in terms of a bit of storytelling, I think, it's great to come from a higher level and explain sort of the superstructure on those. But two stories that really are, for me, helpful in understanding how does it happen, how does it help. One of my favorite life care manager stories is I was serving a couple who live in Maine, and the parent lives here in Maryland and suffered dementia. And the process of that to the point that when the adult kids came down from Maine, he reached the point where he really didn't know them anymore. So they understood the time, energy, the shoe leather, the vacation time they were consuming to try to get down here routinely and see him and check on him. When they realized that they could hire a life care manager to be their deputy, to be their boots on the ground, to pop in at the memory care and to interact with the team at the memory care and the physician. And it was a life changer for them, and just a great way for people to understand sometimes this is happening by remote. The other story I would want to share is, well, let me not get in the weeds with that, but just understand that there's all kinds of problem solving that life care managers do. I guess I will go there. The social workers at the hospitals are some of my favorite people. They tend to be very caring, and they tend to be very overworked, in my opinion. So, at the end of the day, when you have a loved one who's being discharged from the hospital, those social workers are working hard and they care, and they're going to give you as much as they can. But there's a higher level here. And if you can hire a life care manager to get in the gap and help with vetting the discharge plan, is it going to be to rehab? Is it going to be to assisted living? What does your family member need? You're taking it to a higher level, and you're bringing somebody in who is personally invested in you and has skin in the game for you. It's not a patch against the teams at the hospital. It's just that there is true value in working with a life care manager. I'm a true believer. Okay, so I really appreciate that you guys have questions, and it doesn't, bother me at all to have it pop in or be out of sequence in any way. Back to the real estate world and, the education on that, pocket listing, that is something that I really like talking about, particularly to my older adult clients, who are nothing but older adult clients in my world because of my niche. So a pocket listing is when the realtor comes and the client expresses that they are a very private person. This is really stressing them out. They don't want the whole world trooping through their house. They would love for things to be done, by appointment or in a more controlled fashion. And the realtor says, okay, that's great. We can handle this as a quiet listing, a pocket listing. And what that means is that you're not out there live on the market, being exposed to literally the whole entire world, because a large percentage of our buyers here in Maryland and in Howard County are international buyers. What you lose when you do it that way is you lose the opportunity to have your home, your property exposed as widely as possible. And that's how you get the highest price normally. You show it to the world. Everybody who's going to fall in love with it gets that opportunity. They all come and then they start having a bidding war. If you don't do it that way, you risk the scenario where the agent says, sure, I'll bring you a buyer. I'll happily do that. They bring you a buyer, one buyer, you're asking 400. That buyer says, great, I'll pay 400. Nobody ever realizes that you missed the boat on the opportunity to maybe get 4.25 or 440 based on marketing it widely and having the opportunity to have a bidding war. As long as you are educated about it and you understand what you're forfeiting by doing it that way, it's great by me. If the realtor comes and doesn't explain that to you and you're not, as the kids say, woke to what you just forfeited because you didn't know what you didn't know, that's where I take umbrage. We had clients who, it was a retiring physician and spouse, and this is how they wanted to do it privately. And we all agreed that they made less money on the house than they could have, but that's the way they wanted to do it. So we come with respect, but we only want to do that if you're educated about it and you're making an informed choice. So that's my spiel on pocket listings. In the industry and in seniors real estate, that is something of a soapbox. And those of us who know about that understand that realtors will take advantage of older adults by doing that. What's in it for the realtor is $40,000 more for your home sale price doesn't give them that much more in commission earning. But if they can get your home sold by doing as little work on their side as possible and spending as little to market your property as possible, then they've made out. So, again, here I am being an industry insider and trying to get some of these concepts across in a way that will help you and, kind of make you, again, bomb-proof. Seller net is something that I want to get across to you as a concept as more important than the sale price of your home. People get hung up on what did my home sell for? What was that number? I'm hung up on let's deduct the cost of having your wallpaper peeled off, having your home gotten ready for sale, and what are the agents charging me for commission, and what are my closing costs going to be in my state and my county. Do all of that arithmetic, subtract all of that. Now I understand what my seller net is. What is my profit from the sale of my home? And that is the number that, when retirement communities are saying, you have to go through a financial qualification process, they also don't really care about the sale price of your home. They want to understand what you're walking away with. And I mean, I've had, the gamut is I own my home free and clear, and I am going to have, a large profit from the sale, and the gap between the sale price and the seller net is very small. Might as well be practically the same number percentage-wise. And then I have people who just recently refinanced and who are going to sell a $300,000 condo, and they're only going to walk away with maybe $42,000. So the gap is very great between their net, their profit, and the sale price. So be aware of that. And it's a great thing when you're interviewing agents, have them sit there and do the arithmetic. Say to them, hey, you're here, we're together at the kitchen table. Can you, show me my seller net? Because that really, again, puts you in a power position, particularly if you're turning around and shopping for a property to buy, or shopping retirement communities where you're going to have, potentially a buy-in type cost and then a monthly cost. I want you to know what your profit is going to be. Commissions. It's not my favorite thing to talk about because my passion is for, the older adult process in this world. It's not really about the real estate per se, but my passion around the topic of commissions is, you should be asking. And if you only have one agent come in and you don't even discuss it, it's not that you have the wool pulled over your eyes. It's just that you're now not educated about the fact that if you have 2 or 3 more realtors come in, odds are they're going to be charging possibly a different commission, higher, lower, always negotiable. And, be in the power position. Ask them what they charge. Ask them, you tell them you'd like to negotiate. And they work hard for their money. There's a saying in every profession, you're not paying me for the minutes, you're paying me for the years, because good ones, a good neurosurgeon makes it look easy. But when things go wrong and it turns into the Wild West, then all the years of experience are what what matters, and that's what you're paying for. I like to have a conversation about whether we're going to sell and move, or whether we're going to move and then sell. And there's a whole kind of, light bulb that can go off where people didn't even think about this as a topic, as an option. In my world, which is nothing but older adults, to do it in the most kind and gentle way possible is my, that's my goal. And so it opens the door to a conversation about, well, never thought about it. Let's talk about it. What does it look like to go against, the stereotype of selling and then moving? Moving and then selling can be a beautiful thing. I am a very pragmatic person. I understand that it comes down to the bottom line. There's a financial aspect. So, and also the scenario, am I moving in with my daughter to her in-law apartment? Am I moving to a continuing care retirement community that's going to have a large, multi-$100,000 upfront fee? And if so, how can I get my finances, liquid enough to do that closing and then move there and get set up in my new nest and then have the selling process go on at my home? So it's something I love talking about. There's creativity and there's, it's a bit out of the box if you haven't been thinking about that. So it's a great conversation to have. It can turn into a conversation then where we're pulling in the finance wizards. And if you're working with people who are your account managers and those kinds of things, it can turn into a conversation about home equity lines of credit with banks, because your home equity is something that, in theory, you could harness and use that and, do a very short-term process where you're using that to your best outcome and then, retiring that debt at closing, all different kinds of creativity. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a financial planner, but I work closely with all of those different subsets, and it's fun to kind of pull that orchestra in together and get you your best outcome, things that we can talk about. That can lead to a discussion about, well, depending on what I do with that scenario, I'm either selling occupied, maybe staged, or I'm selling vacant and empty potentially. So that continuum is something I like to talk about because there is no cookie cutter, and the best practice is to do what is ultimately going to be best for you. So it's a whole conversation unto itself. There is a lot of good information, a lot of good data and statistics around the outcomes that staging can give a client. Looks like a model home. People come and fall in love with it. It's all dialed in to look exactly as close as possible to what the buyers want. That being said, I have amazing success stories where people said, I'm a senior, I'm going to get out of Dodge. We're going to sell the house not only vacant, I'm out, but also empty. And buyers come and flock to that because they see that, they can see the bones of the house. There's no kind of imprint of the previous owner, and the psychology there is, this is fresh. It's like a new house. I'm going to move in. I don't have to wait for anybody to move out. And buyers will make a beeline to a vacant and empty house. So it's a bit contrarian. I am a thread splitter, hair splitter, but it's something that we can talk about. And again, another example of how I'm in the weeds, and it's not just real estate and what's the selling price of my house. There's a lot more that we can talk about. Again, in the real estate world, home inspections, people will often ask me, should I have the home inspection first before I go active and live on the market, or should I wait until the buyer brings it, I'm under contract, and the buyer brings the home inspector? Two schools of thought, and what we normally coach is it's better to wait until you're under contract and your buyer brings the home inspector. And the rationale behind that is that if you do it ahead of time, and I'm sort of, in Aesop's fables, you've got the ant and the grasshopper, and the ant likes to be ahead of the game and know what's going on and be prepared. So it's hard for me to not go down that path, but I see the value of this coaching, which is to wait. If I do it, I have to pay the fee, and it's, several $100s, $400 or $500. The inspector will find all the things, and then I know all the things, and then I can run around and spend my time and energy ahead of the game fixing the things. But what happens is I put the house up for sale. If there's anything that I didn't fix, I have to legally now disclose what was found, because I had a proper inspector come in and do that process, and I have to disclose it as I'm selling. Then my buyer comes and brings their own home inspector. They go through my house and they have to justify their existence, as we all do. So they're going to find a whole bunch of additional different things, and I'm going to have to handle the negotiations of fixing or not fixing those things as well. So we say, maybe if you're aware of things that need fixing in your house, go ahead, be proactive, get on it, get ahead of the game. But maybe that's, again, a hair split of, do that, but don't necessarily have a licensed home inspector come in and open up all of that until you have your buyer, you're under contract, and they're doing it. And then we will handle it as a negotiation where we are your advocate, handling that between you and your buyer client. Does real estate provide property management? I want to just touch on that. We're going into the winter months. If any of you are already on the market, are not thinking about this, it's a great seed to plant. It snows, we have ice. In the summer, the grass grows and the weeds grow. Real estate companies do not provide property management normally. And so particularly when people have moved out and the home is being sold empty and vacant, sometimes the agent will forget to say, you're out of there, but you need to keep your grass being cut, or you need to have your neighbor who comes and shovels your snow. They need to still do that because the house is on the market. We're having showings. Other agents from other brokers are bringing buyers through. So you don't want anything that hurts your curb appeal or hurts the ability to access the house. I'll also have conversations where people will say, do I have to leave the utilities on? And they're very sincere, and just to take a moment and understand that we do this all day long, day in, day out, year after year. But if you haven't sold a house in 30, 40, 50 years, and my oldest client was 100 and lived in a 100-year-old house and never lived anywhere else, she didn't know. So good conversations to have, and trying not to take anything for granted. Asking agents whether they come to your home appraisal and your home inspection. I hate to say it, it's a good thing to do, because then you've got them on point that that's your expectation. Some firms do, and it's very ironclad, and it's part of the professional, the professionalism of that agent and that broker. But some don't. They're very loosey-goosey, and they don't necessarily come unless you ask them and make sure that they're coming. Your agent should be there doing that for you, because they are there to function as your advocate. And a good agent will basically do the home appraiser's job for them. They will give them, the same kind of market analysis that they prepared for you when they came to take your listing. And the appraisers love it because, you're helping educate them about that property, and you're doing it in a more in-depth way. A good agent wants your house to appraise. So now I'm going to go back to senior living and
Victoria,
yes.
Just a quick question. So going back to the property management piece, do larger property management companies that you may be aware of in the area, would they offer that service to private individuals and their homes as far as maintaining a home that needs upkeep, or are there smaller companies that would offer that service to individual homeowners? You know the answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is kind of, it depends. And yes, there are large property management companies, ones that are managing client rentals, and that's their whole stock and trade. And then, there are real estate agents and agencies, brokerages, where part of the service is that, that agent or that staff is going by periodically and checking, popping in, making sure there's not an inch of water in the basement, God forbid, making sure that, the heat pump didn't break, making sure that if the neighbor did say they're going to come and shovel, that they did shovel and salt and it's safe. And then making sure to bring that feedback back to the client and back to, to the brokerage, to the team. It can be very informal. It can be just that, your high school neighbor kid continues to do it and you have an agreement with them, or you can go outside of that and actually hire and have a contract with a firm to do that for you. And anything goes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Back to senior living and how all that fits together. One of the things that I will encounter is I'll meet with a family, meet with a couple, meet with a seller, and they will say, I'm not ready yet. I do see this in my future, but I'll be ready when I'm ready. And so that kind of opens the door for me to do a bit of coaching that is the kind of conversation you would have with the sales marketing at senior living. And by that, there's an inventory problem sometimes with the place that you want to go. So I maybe have done my legwork. I know the community I'm going to choose, and I want 3 more Christmases in my house. And after that third Christmas, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to move to that senior living community that I've chosen. The bucket of cold water, the sad, bad wake up call to that scenario is you then go and you realize, uh-oh, there's a wait list, and there's been a wait list all along, and it's a real estate inventory problem, just like when you go out to buy a house. So my coaching is do your legwork, dial in your choices, do the learning, do the visits, understand the financial models and how senior living is apple to orange to each other. And even when you zero in on one format, might be continuing care retirement community format, might be a pay as you go monthly annual contract, all different kinds. Once you narrow it down to what's going to be best for you, understand that even then the apple is different to the apple in the category. So you need to really do your learning, then understand that there might be a scenario where you would do well to get on a wait list, get on all the wait lists, because I want you to be in the power position. I want you to have all the choices at your fingertips, and I want you to have what you want when you want it. That being said, I'm working with people who go ahead, do all of that, get on the wait list, but then they are waiting for the physical location inside the community where it's, the sunny southwest corner, or they only want the top floor, they only want the ground floor, all kinds of things that they're passionate about. That can trigger a longer waiting process because, you're waiting for a specific type. So you're narrowing the availability. It's just like real estate all over again. What that then takes me into is making sure that people understand that if they're looking at continuing care retirement community format, CCRC is the jargon, and that's where you're typically, the scenario is people are selling their wonderful home, their longtime home, their property. They're realizing the profit from that, and they're using that to have the buy-in, that large buy-in fee that goes into the continuing care retirement community. That carries healthcare with it, which is, a huge part of the attraction and a way that they are different from other senior living options in our community. But if you wait and you have a health event, something happens to your health, something happens to your finances, there are, ways that you can be disqualified. So, one of my kind of insider things is have that conversation with your family, with your spouse, with the sales marketing teams, and do that war gaming, do those scenarios, do that learning ahead of time. I've had people who say, I don't want to, have a health event, a car crash, a stroke, something that's going to cause me to be disqualified from ever going in. So I'm going to go in sooner than I thought I was and not play Russian roulette with all of that. And furthermore, even though my ultimate goal is to be in the, the penthouse location, whatever square footage, I'm going to go into a 1-bedroom on the ground floor that I don't really want, and I'm going to move within the community. And that way I'm going to leapfrog everybody who's on those external wait lists. So here again, you can see that part of my joy is to go into the weeds and maybe talk about things that you didn't even know you didn't know, and to help you strategize and to help you understand that this is its own whole world, and just try to kind of walk you through it.
Victoria,
Yes.
I have I think a pretty good question here from our good friend Cheryl.
Okay.
Can you cover how heirs sell a property and estate sales?
Let's see. That is its own whole world in real estate, estate sales. I guess I'm going to just start talking, and if I go in a direction that isn't helpful, bring me back and keep me on point. Estate sale of property is something that's very normal. People do die and leave property to heirs. Sometimes there's no will, sometimes there's a trust, sometimes there's only a will. So there are all different kinds of scenarios with how the deceased property owner has set things up or not. And then the heirs may be highly educated and informed about what the person leaving it to them did, or they may be completely uninformed and it's coming out of the blue that they are even, part of inheriting this property. I would say that what I see is there are different goals when you are the person who's inherited the property. Sometimes, the heir lives in California and they are a busy physician and they don't even want to come back here to see it. There's no emotional investment. It's just a piece of property, and they just need it to be sold. So the realtor comes, there can be communication about best way to do it. Sometimes there will be the opportunity to sell it as is, and it goes very quickly, and it might even be bought by an investor for cash. And it would make your head spin how quickly that can happen. It could be a couple weeks and the deal is done and it's over and done with, and they've got their money, game over. Other times it can be, hey, this is an asset and we want to put money into it to make it a cream puff, and to put 100,000 in, and we're going to get 200,000 more out, return on investment. So to have that understanding of this unique property and what are the goals of the person who inherited it, and that's how we're going to serve. So it's a bit like any other property that you sell in terms of options. How are we going to do it, and what are the goals? Real estate is really brainwashed that when we come as an industry, we're assuming that you want the quickest sale time and the most money, but it isn't always that way. Sometimes there's a legacy type of thing. They want to sell it for the least that they can and just fair market value, and they want to have it go to a family member. Sometimes they'll have a close friendship with a neighbor, and the neighbor's kids want to buy it and live next door to their family. So there's all different kinds of human stories that go on with an estate sale of a property. I don't know if that answered the question.
I think so. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Which is a nice segue to whether to sell as is or renovated. So you're back in the world of real estate, but in particular with seniors real estate, my norm and my respect is that I'm 56. I've lived in my house for 27 years. I see what goes on in terms of the upkeep and the maintenance of a house and the systems. Your heat pump doesn't last forever. Your roof doesn't last forever. You may get with the crazy weather we have nowadays, you may get a flood in your basement, never knew you needed a sump pump. So there's all those kinds of property things that happen over time. And the respect that I bring to that is huge. And there's a fear factor, and there can be a shame factor of having anybody come in and look at your house. And to them, I say, understand that age and illness and bereavement and just the daily grind of home ownership and home maintenance is a thing. And so, to be able to talk to people and say, do you want to sell as is? Do you want to do any renovations? Do you want to fully renovate it? And how is that going to affect your bottom line? So I touched on this earlier, but it's something that I am, again, passionate about, because we're there to solve problems and we're there to help achieve goals and to really get into the weeds about how we're going to do that. How that translates into the selling process. And it's important to me to talk about this. I appreciate if how we're doing on time. We still have time to talk about it. The way that we sell property now is very different to how we sold property before the internet. It's literally a technological revolution, and it has affected real estate and home selling. Okay, so I'm going to go back in time. It used to be that you call the agent, you hire the agent, you put your house on the market, the picture of the house is in the newspaper, the sign is on the lawn, and other agents brought buyers to your property, into your home. They could fall in love and understand, here's the lot and, how it's situated and get a 3D sense of it. Make an offer, buy the house. Now it's all about your home's appearance and all about the pictures of your house, because people are shopping for houses and coming and making appointments to actually see specific houses based on how your house looks in its pictures on the internet. So you can get a great outcome. I just want people to be educated, and I want to set the expectation and make sure people really understand how it's different. So what happens now is whatever you decide to do with the appearance of your house, the photographer comes and those are the pictures that get taken, and that listing and those pictures go live, go onto the internet. And the people that are shopping sit there on a Saturday afternoon and they get out their laptop and they start looking at all the properties that are up for sale at that time that they can afford. And they are going to narrow down to maybe, the ones that they can hit on a Saturday or during the Sunday open houses. And what they're doing is they're picking, the most that they can afford, that looks the best, that has the least amount of work. And if you go as is and your house needs a lot of work, needs a lot of renovation, that's okay. We can do that. We can get you a good outcome. It's just that we need to set the expectation that, the risk you take is nobody's going to come to your house if it looks like it's too much work. The fix for that is to price it appropriately. So what we don't want to have is a legitimate, as is buyer. This is my path. I'm going as is. I'm not doing any renovations. Make sure you're priced appropriately, because the buyers and the buyer agents are smart. They're educated. They've spent the past 10 years watching Home and Garden TV. It's going to be okay. But if your home is priced properly, if you're asking a pie in the sky price that is equivalent to your neighbor's house across the street that's been made like new, it's not going to be a good outcome for you. So there again, to have agents telling you the truth and helping you through the process, and being honorable about it and doing the right things, all these scenarios can work and can be great. We just need you to be educated about it and not let anybody pull the wool over your eyes and then have those timetables eroding, and then they're coming to you for price reductions, or the buyers are coming and saying, well, we're going to negotiate you down because you've got paneling that we don't like, or wallpaper we don't like, or a problem with your septic, or whatever. So again, the value of having the agent come early and having all of these conversations up front. You don't want to be handling all of this at the time of sale. I guess the other thing I would say about that is it leads into a conversation about, I will just give a credit. I don't want to pull my wallpaper down. I'll just give a credit. Whatever it is, that credit conversation. It worked better in the old days when the buyers physically came to the house and they fell in love, and then you're at the dance and you're able to negotiate and you're able to offer those credits. What happens now again is, remember, they may not even come to your house. They may just swipe right past it because they see work. They see that they're going to have to put money in up front to get it to be the way they want it to be. They can't afford to do it that way. They don't want to go out of pocket. They want a house that they just plain old get a mortgage for, and all that money is like right there wrapped up in that nice little package, and they can move right in. So just, there's some psychology, there's some finance, there's some perception, and I will, happily pull the threads out And that's why, when people say, do you really have to come to my house and see me and be on campus? And we do say yes, ultimately. We can learn so much about your property thanks to the world of computers and technology and Zillow and all of that. But there's nothing like the real estate agent coming to the house to really eyeball for condition. And then, it is what it is, and we can coach you accordingly. And, a good agent can give you all the resources you're going to need, whichever path you decide to go down. So I talked about how to buy or shop in 2020, and can I give a credit? Now, so you've interviewed agents, you have elected to have a timetable, and you've chosen the agent, and you've signed the listing agreement. Now it's time to get started on the downsize. In my ideal, you would be chipping away at your downsize all along. Please do not wait until the agent comes, you've signed the listing, and the sign has gone in the ground. To me, there are distinct chunks in this process, and the downsizing chunk is its own thing and deserves the respect and the time and the energy ahead of the game. And then the search for where you're going to go and be moving to is another chunk. And then the preparing the house for sale can be a chunk. And then the actual selling process can be a chunk. So, best practice is to handle these as far up the chain, as far up the timeline as possible, as much as you can stand. And I'm a respectful person. I'm as respectful of the person who's 3 years ahead of the game as I am for the person who's wanting the sign to go on the lawn that day. We'll get it done, and we will bring help and resources, but best practice is to get on it and get on it ahead of time. So one of the things that I educate on in this category is a conversation about what is a mover versus what is a move manager. A mover, everybody knows what a mover does. Nothing new there. A mover comes and they give you an estimate, and they pack you up and they move your boxes over, and you go from point A to point B. And when you get to point B, hey lady, where do you want your sofa? And here's your boxes, and they're out. Move management is an industry that is new to the tune of 10, 12, 15 years now. And it is a magic wand. And I don't know how people ever got it done without having move management. I certainly did all of the things I'm going to tell you about now for each of my parents and their homes. And the pound of flesh came off of me. And, to understand that there are professional, licensed, bonded, insured companies that specialize in this whole world it is a magic wand. So move management, that is, you interview for that just the same way as you do for a real estate agent. There are multiple companies. You can have multiple interviews coming right out of the gate. I want you to have the interviews with the companies who do not charge for their consult, because that's your differentiator right at the start. Some of them are free and expert, and they come and consult just like we come for free. The ones who charge normally do it in a way where they'll say, well, yes, we'll come, we'll consult, that's a couple $100, but don't worry, we'll apply that when you hire us. Well, maybe you're hiring competitively, interviewing competitively, and maybe you don't want to be inveigled to the one that's already charging you a fee just to come out. So, the free ones are great. And to me, free and expert beats expert and charges you a consulting fee. So when they come and they do their consult, they're going to walk your entire house, and you should be opening cupboards and closets and, have no shame and let your hair down and show them what you've got. And then there's going to be a conversation about how we're going to do battle, how we're going to get this done. The continuum that they can do in their service is, from soup to nuts. Normal is that you don't have to have them do everything. You may only need them to do a couple of the things that they provide, or you may want the whole experience. The continuum would start with they can space plan where you're going. So, we used to say floor plan. Floor plan is two-dimensional, and some people enjoy this. You can go to the Home Depot or go on the internet and get the little scale blocks. There's my bed, and there's my dresser, and there's my kitchen table, and will it fit? And it's fun. if you like that. Some people just, their brains aren't set up for spatial analysis, and they would, really love to get some help with that. So we call it space planning instead of floor planning, because space allows for a third dimension. And so, yeah, maybe the trunk at the end of the bed only sticks out, here on the image, but maybe that's going to cause you to knock your knees and crash and burn in your bed at night, in your bedroom at night as you go to the bathroom. So there's a lot of care taken to make sure that it's safe as they plan the space that you're going into. And the goal is normally to take the things that you love and want to take with you, make sure they're going to fit and look good. Now you've got the first spoke of the wheel of your downsize. You know where you're going, you know what you're taking, and you know it'll fit. And that's huge. So then what about the other 4 spokes of the wheel? You are figuring out what things you're going to give to friends and family. And how am I going to get them there? Because we have things, people live in Singapore and we're shipping to Singapore. Or we are figuring that, my son-in-law is going to take the sofa bed and he lives in Silver Spring. So those kinds of scenarios. Now you're down to what you might actually have to sell. And does that stuff have market value? And it can be a really fun conversation. You thought things you had didn't have value, but they do. It can also be a heartbreaking conversation because, you invested and you've got beautiful furniture and whatever that is, it's not the flavor of the moment and there's no market for it. So that's a conversation that happens, and a determination of what is left, can it be sold? That gets into weeds as far as, am I doing a tag sale, a garage sale, a yard sale? Am I having Craigslist and people coming to my house? Am I going to have an auction and the auctioneer will come and truck things away? Or do I have to get the things to the auctioneer? Is my grandson going to make good and actually come and photograph everything and put it on eBay for me? And then how am I going to ship those things out for out-of-town buyers? That's its own whole world. Then you've got what's left after that is things that still have use and have life in them and would love to be donated. So who can run that program for you? And then you've got trash. So trash can be a wastebasket full, it can be a double wide dumpster in the driveway. But that's the trash piece. And then how green can we make it? Can you have somebody that's a junk hauler who also will recycle or help in that way? So that is a way to understand that when you call a move manager, it can go from space planning to handling those 5 spokes of the wheel to get you to empty. And now you are sorted, sold, divested, donated, and you are going to pack up. They're going to pack you up. They're going to move you from point A to B like a mover. Okay, so now you're moved. Magic on the other end is that they are going to come in and potentially unpack you, clothes in closets, sheets on beds, pictures hanging on walls, boxes broken down, taken away and recycled. And you're in like you've been in for, a whole year and highly served. Again, some families are coming in and saying, we're going to move mom and dad. I say, all right, that's great. What you want to do there is make sure that you're doing your homework with the senior living community, because pandemic or not, some of them will allow a family move and some will not. And it has to do with how they are insured and underwritten and what they will allow. And right now for pandemic, lots of people moving into senior living, but those rules keep changing, and the move management firms are highly aware. So I love talking about that because a lot of people never even knew that such a service existed. Sometimes the move management firms can defer their payment for their service until your property closes, which is to me kind of, fantastic on top of fantastic. I don't like cash flow. Even if I've got millions, I get anxious about cash flow. And so, being able to have work done on your home and you don't pay for it till you're closed, having your move, all these services up front that you need to get ready, and you don't have to pay until you close. There's a lot of really cool stuff that happens in these industries. And again, if you don't know, you don't know, and we're not having the conversation. So I like talking about that.
Victoria?
Yes.
All right. Pause for a minute for a couple of questions, please.
Yep.
All right. First question is, can you give a range of commission costs for Howard County, and in particular Columbia, isn't the market quote unquote hot?
Great. Okay, so thank you for that. The market is really hot. When you say, okay, tell me in detail, how do I understand what is a hot market? What does that mean? Right now, what we are seeing is there are very low rates, low interest rates. So the buyers can come and they can buy a lot of house for a little bit of financing. And, it increases the affordability and buyers get really excited about that. So that's been great. And it's driven the demand. There is very low inventory right now in our area. So, instead of a glut of houses on the market, there aren't that many. So you've got buyers who are qualified and can get great interest rates, and they're aware, and they are racing around. When I was young and we played the musical chairs game at children's birthday parties, it's like real estate with musical chairs. Too many buyers, too few houses. Everybody's racing to buy what exists, and you're getting multiple offers. And so then everybody's coming out of pocket and throwing everything they can at it, trying to win that contract, to win that house. And you have, 14 that are unsuccessful, and that 15th one is the succeeding one. And then those 14 buyers go running off and they all try to find the next chair, buy the next house. So it is, I would go as far as to say it's hideous right now if the agents are serving as buyer agent, because they're having, multiple disappointments and upset clients and being fired because, the client's thinking it's your fault. You're not an aggressive agent. You're not helping me. You didn't create a winning contract. That's how unpleasant it is right now to be a buyer. To be a seller right now is a pretty pleasant experience. And the sale prices, the median price is up. The actual sale prices are up. The days on market are down. So it's who could have predicted this? But this is the market that we're in right now. Coming from anxiety, being a nerd, I always say, and I don't like that real estate is famous for creating false urgency. The sooner that agent gets your home sold, the sooner that agent gets paid. And that's fine. That's how the industry works. But it's not okay with me if it turns into creating adrenaline for our sellers. And because I'm only serving older adults, there's enough adrenaline. I don't want that. I don't like it to be that way. That being said, we never know when the market's going to change. So, I've lived through Desert Storm and the Black Friday in 1987 and 2008 and 9/11. So all of these things that we didn't see coming, they happen, and in the real world, that means it impacts the economy, and therefore it impacts our local real estate market. So I guess my thing is, it's great right now. Don't take it for granted. And some people have put a rush on things to get the cash windfalls that are happening right now, and I have the greatest respect for that. And I have people who are kicking the can down the road, and they're waiting, and they think it's going to go on forever. And I feel like at least I can sleep at night if I get my words out that, yeah, it's great right now, but who knows? As far as commissions, it is, again, not my favorite thing. It's very sensitive. Real estate, it should always be negotiable. Agents right now would love to be able to come and make 6%. A lot of agents will act like they're doing you a favor if they're charging 5.5%. That would be a really important conversation to have right out of the gate with anybody that you're interviewing. What do you normally charge? Is it negotiable? With the greatest respect to real estate agents, what are you going to give me for the commission? Because that's a whole nother thing to unpack. It's not apple to apple. Are you going to advertise my house on how many World Wide Web real estate addresses? Are you going to put my house in the paper? Are you going to be the agent who works at a brokerage where it falls on you, the agent, to pay to market my home? Or does your brokerage have it set up so that the broker assumes those costs? Because now you've got an agent who does or doesn't have skin in the game, and who may have deep pockets or not deep pockets as far as what they can do for you if their business model is set up that way. So I don't want to overwhelm, but I care so much about this. And if you can understand just a little bit about how the real estate industry works, and that when an agent troops in from one brokerage and an agent troops in from another brokerage, it could be entirely different behind the scenes. What does that mean for you? Is what I care about. So I hope that helps.
It does very much. And as a follow-up to that question, the same person asked, I couldn't see it as my screen froze the first time, I apologize. Do you have lists of contractors or handyman type of people who can do needed fix-up help?
Short answer is yes. And any realtor worth their salt should have that. I'm going to go, extreme examples here. You could have somebody who's lovely and they're going to kill themselves doing a great job for you. They're brand new, they're completely wet behind the ears, and they are a standalone agent. And so they're going to be short on resources. They're going to be hoping that other agents that they know, or somebody's going to help them with those kinds of connections. And even if they do get that kind of help, they're not going to have the years of experience and the tried and true and the trust and the accountability to anybody that they're sending you. They're maybe going to act like there's a relationship there, and in truth there isn't going to be, and it's going to be more of like a Yellow Pages Craigslist type, yeah, I heard this guy's good. The other end of that continuum is going to be a master agent who has been doing this in this location, literally here in our community for decades. They've sorted the wheat from the chaff as far as who they can trust and who's not going to gouge you and who's not going to come and rip out your sink and vanity and then not show up again the next day. And they actually do have trust and accountability with these different vendor category relationships. Real estate is very good and strong on, if you are a realtor and you refer any of these categories, they've got to be licensed. They've got to, hit all the marks in terms of, not just being some guy that can come and do things for you. I got a guy, it's got to be a licensed Maryland home license, LHIC number that you can actually ask for and have. I guess my other soapbox part of that would be, that's part of what you should be asking when you're interviewing agents. And it hurts me for the young, wonderful ones who are going to be fantastic. But in my opinion, I don't want anybody that I'm helping I want you to have somebody who's not learning their job of agency on your transaction. I just don't. There are plenty of other deals out there that they can do. I don't want any kind of a learning curve. I want the expert. So you have every right to ask them, how long have you been an agent? How many properties have you sold? How many have you sold in my zip code? How many have you sold in my price point? The agents can hate me for this, but I'm here to help you and help you get the best apple pie, baked for you. And you've got to ask some of these hard questions and be your own advocate. And I guess that would be, anticipating. Sometimes people will say, well, you're lovely and your firm is great and you're bringing me an expert, but I have a nephew or I have a neighbor or I have a girlfriend who's an agent and they're going to kill me if I don't. We come from respect and it's not meant to be a hard sale. The coaching in those scenarios would be, okay, put the apple to the apple, understand, the commission, understand the depth and breadth of their ability to sell your house and of their experience. And also just, I'm a relationships person, so understand that sometimes real estate turns into the Wild West. And it's unfortunate, it's a business where things happen. And if it's happening in a way that it's going to damage your relationship with somebody that you're working with as agent who is close to you in any way, shape, or form, if the value of the relationship staying good is more important to you than the value of having them sell your property, or have them do a referral. Say, I'm not gonna use you as my agent, but you're gonna get a referral fee by referring it to the agent that I feel best about selling my home. There's ways to create a win-win and not have hard feelings and preserve those relationships. And I see that a lot. And just, if anybody says, gosh, she's talking about the Wild West, that's negative. I want to kind of let the air out of that a little bit. When you're the seller, you have your agent working for you and you're going through the sale process, a lot of which we've touched in detail this morning. Your buyer has an agent. That could be a great agent. It could be an agent who's brand new. It could be a part-time agent. It could be somebody who's very sloppy, very detailed. You don't know. There's an agent on the other side. As the seller, you are not the one who's picking the title company and the lender. The buyer is. So all these moving parts, there's more moving parts on the buyer side, the agent, the lender, the title, the home inspector. So we as the buyers, we have to kind of sit down and buckle our seatbelts and hold on for that. I'm a truth teller, and I never sugarcoat, and things can go smoothly, and it can be like this, fantastic, amazing experience. And other times it can be quite bumpy. As the seller, sellers look at us, who are helping them sell, and they get upset and they say, well, this went wrong, this went wrong, this went wrong. I had a terrible experience. We're sitting there as the seller agents saying that wasn't on our, on our watch. I mean, these are things that are happening on the other side. The beauty of it, to bring it back to the positive, is that a good, experienced, diligent agent that is helping you sell, they will get in there and they will fight if they need to, and they will be your advocate, and nothing will flap them because they've seen it all and they know that they can get you across the finish line. It's just, again, kind of a higher level discussion about real estate at all.
Thank you. One last brief question, Victoria. Maybe you can touch on this now, or it might be an offline question. How marketable is Hampton real estate?
Hamden. Do you mean Hamden in Baltimore?
Hampden.
Hamden. So I think that there's a couple conversations going on there right now. Again, I am not the person who's out there being the realtor and doing the transaction. Everything that you're experiencing here today, represents the niche that I'm in, where I am licensed, but I never ever sell. I stay in my lane, I stick to my knitting, and I do this whole world. This is my thing. What I hear the agents saying right now about Hamden is Hamden, that is literally Hamden, lots of demand and fun and great, and a known name, a known neighborhood, a place to be. Flip side on that is, whether people do or don't want to be in the city, and, what is it like to be looking at, pandemic issues, economic issues, those kinds of things, or maybe a property that is, you can see Hamden from here, but it's literally not Hamden. So kind of like when you're downtown in Baltimore and you're saying, oh, it's Harbor East, but it's really not, it's Highlandtown. And, each market is its own thing, and a good realtor who really knows the zip codes and really knows the neighborhood aspect of Baltimore, that's going to be your ace. And somebody who doesn't buy your listing, but really tells you the truth about what's going on, is it really Hamden? Is it really that neighborhood? Get that market analysis going, and let's not just have pie in the sky and what we think it is. Let's get the data on paper and look at what's selling, how long it's taking to sell, what the prices are. That's where you're bringing it back to reality for wherever you live, whether it's Hamden or, a particular neighborhood here in Howard County.
Thank you.
Of course. I can see I'm about to time out. I feel like I've saved the best and one of the most important things for last. One of the things that I really, really am passionate about talking about is power of attorney in the scope of real estate. It has been known to ruffle some feathers. People will say, well, you're real estate and you're not an attorney, and, this is a sales call. And the poor agents that I take with me are, their toes are curling up in their shoes because I'm bringing a potential black cloud talking about power of attorney, because, you normally only need power of attorney when you need it, and you're not necessarily thinking about that with respect to selling a house. My coaching, my dream, and when I go out into the public libraries at night and talk about this, is that if you're 18 or you're 108, you have a power of attorney. Basic tool, basic concept. Have one, have it be as airtight and updated and not stale and robust and covers, I don't know, social media, whatever the latest, greatest things are that we're putting in powers of attorney these days. Do it. So many times in my work, people don't have it and the chips fall and you can't go back and get it when you need it. So some quick storytelling about how and why real estate is talking to the topic of power of attorney. I had a seller couple. Mr. Seller owned the house and was on the deed, and his second wife was there with him. They're married. She's not on the deed. She married him after he bought and owned that house. And, we were called in and I did my consult and I touched the topic of power of attorney. And, with the greatest respect, coming right out of the gate, they didn't even really, they felt safe enough with me to say, we don't even really know what a power of attorney is and why we would need one. So I explained that it protect them in case something happened and we couldn't go to closing. I got to keep my blinders on to some extent that I'm working in real estate. So how does it apply to real estate? So they thanked me and I, said, here's your great resource, and go to them and talk to them about power of attorney. Yes, Victoria, will do it. So I'm out, I go home, I'm sleeping great, every night thinking I've cared for these people, I've educated them, and they've gone and done their homework. Well, we sold the house, in a few days for a huge amount over asking, and everybody was so excited and happy. And Mr. Seller had an aneurysm, shock trauma, coma, never came out of the coma. Mrs. Seller is flipping out because they didn't go get powers of attorney. So now she does not have the power of attorney, which is the only little tool that she needs to be able to go to closing and sell that house and get the money and be done and walk away. We sold it 3 times. It took 9 months for her to be in front of a judge and to get the power to close the sale. The first buyers wouldn't wait. That whole transaction went into the ditch. We sold it a second time. Those buyers wouldn't wait. They got tired of waiting. They got out of the contract. And the third buyers, 9 months later, lower price, water damage happened, squirrels got in. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. All for the mere fact that for a very, inexpensive and low level of work on their part that they didn't go and get a power of attorney. I told this story to my next example couple, and I didn't want to bring fear, and I can see the agents getting upset that I'm talking about this, and I'm thinking, this is important. And the last thing I want to have happen as a licensee and a professional and a person in my community who's out there doing advocacy and education for older adults is to have somebody come back and say, well, that happened, and I sure wish somebody would have told us. So I'd rather, open my mouth and say the things and take the risk that, maybe it feels like a black cloud. Okay. So I told that whole true story to a couple who married to each other and selling the property and moving to a continuing care retirement community. They told me that I had no business telling them to get powers of attorney. They own the home jointly, tenants by the entirety, and they don't need power of attorney. So then I'm in the position of educating that joint tenants by the entirety, husband and wife owning the house together, is first of all a legal fiction. It's the idea that they each own 100%, which is a legal fiction. But that ownership, that form of ownership is only that. It doesn't give them the power to, if, Mr. goes out on Route 29 and has gets creamed in a terrible car crash, Mrs. cannot go and sign for him at the closing. You can only have that happen through power of attorney. So they said, wow, okay, thank you. We were wrong-headed. You're awesome. We're going to go do it. I went home and I slept really well. Fast forward to the week of their closing. They had enough financial means to do the buy-in at the continuing care retirement community. They moved in, they took occupancy, they did that closing, hundreds of thousands of dollars up front. And Mrs. Seller called me at 7:30 on Monday morning. Closing is going to be that coming Friday. And she was hysterical. And she had walked out to find her husband had a stroke and was, across the kitchen table, coffee cup knocked over. And they hadn't gotten the power of attorney done. So I'm thinking, we're not going to be able to close and sell that house on Friday and give them all their money, which they can then, satisfy their bridge loan and afford to continue to live in the beautiful community that they just moved into. She's going to be in front of a judge, and how are we going to figure this out? So ultimately, it was a mini stroke. He was able to revive, and they did the power of attorney, and we got them through that closing on Friday. But these have become signature stories that I can now go out and talk to you about with the greatest respect and the greatest amount of care. Power of attorney, simple concept. If you don't have one, 18 to all the way up, get one, get one, get one. It will pay dividends to you, and the peace of mind and the bomb proof. I guess my other one is, make sure that when you're doing that with your attorney, talk about a succession plan. I had a grandmother in memory care, a middle-aged son handling everything, and he had her power of attorney. So we're great, we're golden. He dropped dead. So grandmother is in memory care and can no longer give power of attorney. She's past the point. There's two beautiful 20-something granddaughters in college, legal age. They could have been power of attorney, but the power of attorney ended with the middle-aged son who dropped dead. So there was no succession plan. So again, I'm in the weeds, and I can't even leave you with just the idea of power of attorney. I'm going to even go deeper. So, that's something where then I know enough to drop the flag, be a lay person in that regard, do the education and the awareness, and then you can take it back to Jeff and Elville and, have that conversation with them in their special expertise.
Well, how do I follow that up?
More coffee.
Victoria, comes with a servant's heart. As I said at the very beginning, I have a comment here from an attendee I want to share with you. I have learned far more about real estate from you this morning than I had learned in my previous 60 plus years. I truly cannot thank you enough for this incredibly helpful presentation. So, a big thank you to you, Victoria, and a virtual hand to you as well for a job well done. Extremely valuable information, and you're welcome back anytime. And I would demand that you come back and see us again. And we just want to thank you for a great job today and sharing all your knowledge, your tiny part of your knowledge with us.
So many more things to talk about. There's so much more.
Well, there'll be part two to be scheduled at a soon to be announced time. I'm sure you have, that's just a minor part of what you have to share. So Victoria, how do people get in touch with you if they want to talk with you, have additional questions, what have you?
I'm happy to literally share my cell phone number, and people are, call me at 410-979-4284. I love email because, again, the paper trail, and you can share it. We love to have kids and friends and family and attorney involved so that everybody can be on the same page and do teamwork. So for email, it's Victoria@boblucidoteam.com, which is BOBLUCIDOTEAM.com. People will just, call the office, and the office will patch you through. And all that we do, you kind of get the milk for free. You get all the information up front. No money's changing hands. And my joy is to have these robust conversations about all of this and to dial it in for you and answer your specific questions. I feel like today is kind of the back to school night. And when we get together and we talk to each other, that's kind of the parent-teacher conference, if you will, where we really get to talk about you and your kid, your house. So a lot of joy in it, a lot of fun to share all of this. And I am so grateful to have been in front of you today. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And as I wrap up, just in 1 minute, if there are any last questions, please get them to me right now. I appreciate it. So again, how do we follow that up? But we do have a few events coming up next week. Wednesday, we have our estate planning essentials at 10 o'clock. Thursday at 10 o'clock, integrating your business and estate plans. Then Friday on the 22nd, a very popular event we always have at least once a month or so, what families need to know about planning for a loved one with special needs. And a very busy February is in the works as well. So please take a moment to fill out our post-webinar feedback. Let us know what you thought about today. I know what I thought about today. I'm going to fill out a survey. And we really appreciate that. Victoria, love to do this again and see what else you have to say on those other cards that you didn't get to. So we will schedule something again for sometime soon. So
fantastic.
See if there's any other last questions here. It doesn't look like it, just lots and lots of thank yous and job well done. And I'll again echo that. So thank you all for your questions and for being with us today. Victoria, thanks again. Everybody have a wonderful day.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.